Oh my goodness. There's all the boys and girls out there in YouTube land and dancing and prancing on the World Wide Web with all those demons in that black digital abyss, all out there lurking to get into your pocket to get some money. Yeah, all those nasty, nasty people. Yeah, but I'm here. Mad Zack is here to help protect you and guide you and offer you things. And one of those things today I'm going to offer you is a very special excerpt out of my book, Escaping the Despondent Sea. It's all true stories. Um, and there's a lot of lawsuits listed in there for somebody, for any old ambulance chaser that's got a nice briefcase, of course, wants to get involved with Mad Zack. I own all these ideas. Yes. Oh, Melissa Skeeters is out there in Facebook land. Oh, yeah, it's time. I'm going live right now on Facebook for my friends. Done. Okay. Oh, you're gonna love this excerpt. I hope you do. Hold on a minute. Oh my goodness, there's all those boys and girls dancing and prancing in Facebook Street. I see you. Yeah, Mad Zack's going to share some more intel with you today. I want to open up with an excerpt from my book. This is an excerpt titled Out of the Ashes, and it is from my book, Escaping the Despondent Sea, a book full of true stories. So, they're fictionalized. I had to change the names around just a little bit to protect the little boys and girls that might whine and cry a little. Yeah, because Mad Zack's a good father. So, oh my goodness, here we go. Escaping the Despondent Sea, a story of how early childhood trauma paves the road to addiction. A story of survival and an open letter to my children so that if I should die before my goals are achieved, they will know indefinitely how much their father loved them and how hard I tried to get them back. Turns out that the girl that robbed me in the mangroves was busted in Marathon Key at a motel within a half day of the incident. The cops had kicked the door in on the motel, finding her and a drug dealer with guns and drugs, landing her in a prison sentence. My bunkmate Moses Torres was at the location that night when I robbed him and was arrested. That's his real name, by the way. He was smoking cocaine. He told me how he was there and saw my things in the mud and was also arrested that night. My spades partner, Onelia Garcia, also true name, was in for cocaine as well. He was actually a friend of Andy Flynn's, more or less, supplying him with cocaine. O'Neillio explained how he had routinely delivered prostitutes and rocks to Andy. It all became quite clear that I was set up from the beginning, as I had suspected, but now I had proof and witnesses. God, I love going to jail. Andy had planned on working at getting Julie to bend his way, painting me in a bad light in order to get his equipment back and suckering Julie out of all the money he could get while knowing she was in control of her mother's estate. That is, if she wasn't conspiring with him all along. Well, knowing that didn't do a whole lot for my situation, except to reaffirm my awareness related to what my drinking had done in conjunction with my needs, like the need to be wanted or part of something. It was overwhelming, my wanting to file charges against him, but I was not with any way to do it, so I thought about it all the time, stewing. Remembering how Andy's mother had told Julie about Andy doing a year or so in Florida prison for being involved with a situation where they cut a guy's stomach open to get the heroin out so that he was trafficking. It was odd that she would tell Julie this. Maybe she was involved in the scam too. Was that why she bought Andy the Jolly Roger flag for the boat? The whole thing was making me crazy. Once again, I was released from jail. It was around noon when I left. It's easy to remember only because I wanted to eat first and they wouldn't serve me. It was right at lunchtime. My feet quickly took me to the area of activity where I thought I could find some assistance. Lots of people had told me of a church that would give you a bus ticket to get home if you had stranded, but this proved to be untrue. At one point during my hike, I met a group of hippie kids from upstate that were hanging out for whatever festivals going on at the time. They were down here selling pot and mushrooms, planning to leave in the morning. I was given a pair of shoes and some mushrooms. Seeing no point in not eating them, I did. We wandered around as a group, and I felt safe. They took me to where they had been staying, which happened to be a rooftop of an old abandoned building. There was a ladder to get up with that they pulled up on top of the roof to conceal their whereabouts at night. Pretty clever. We hung out and talked about our travels that day, and into the evening, we drank a little and smoked a lot. They invited me to leave with them in the morning, and I gladly accepted. Then they gave me some more mushrooms. Ooh. Yeah, as we wandered around finding cell phones and money that had been lost by people inebriated, the drugs took effect and it became very difficult to manage. Feeling out of sorts, I had to get somewhere to rest out of sight. We headed back to their camp on the rooftop. Somewhere along the way, I became separated from them. Adam Taylor, great to see you. When I was able to think, I found myself being walked back to the room where I'd spent the majority of my time in Key West, in the Monroe County Jail. It had been all of 14 hours. When I woke up from my coma, I found myself in the same bunk I'd been in for the past 3 arrests. Toilet paper was wrapped around me like I'd been mummified. Moses and the guys were laughing at me when I broke out of the bunk. It was funny to them that I was wasted when I came back, and that I'd been so adamant about leaving, but repeatedly failed after they told me that it was near impossible to leave this place. The officers had given me a charge sheet when I came in, but I wasn't able to read it. Now I see that it says I've been charged with trespassing. When I finally speak with my public defender, I explained to him that I want a trial. My chances to go back was gone, just like Gilligan's Island. The kids, I would learn, had made their way up to Miami. They were staying in a hotel when they met up with a grave situation. The girl that was traveling with them, Rose, had been killed by the slitting of her throat. One of the guys was dead of an overdose of heroin. Another guy was beaten badly and left for dead in a puddle of blood. Prison sentences were handed out, but not for the people who did the killing. Had I not become separated from them, I would have been right there with them. Dead or going to prison that time. That's where the kid they found alive in the room went. Was it that I was spiritually guided from that? Or was it just a coincidence? It sure wasn't feeling like I was being guided. People I had known on the streets were being found dead in many strange places. One man who claimed to be a veteran of the Marines named Sonny, he was found dead near mile marker 15. His throat was slashed. He was lying in the ditch on the side of the road when a motorist found him. Another man was killed while he slept on the beach by a hammer blow to the head. People were being killed by methadone overdoses. All these people were homeless people. Of course, no charges were ever filed. Within a week or two, they'd sent a psychiatrist in to evaluate me, but no one goes to trial with a trespassing charge. Well, he interviews me, tells me, "Keep fighting, champ," quote unquote, and then he leaves. Well, several continuances later, that's what the court can do. They can file continuances and drag you out and keep billing for the money. The courts need to be audited too. Yeah, several continuances later, they tell me that because I'm unfit and incompetent, there will be no trial. 45 days after they brought me in, I'm sent to court where they give me time served. I was released on Valentine's Day. I want the courts audited, starting with Monroe County. Chapter, fourth release. That very night, I went to the safe zone, a homeless area, shelter. When I woke the next morning, a truck had arrived that was driven by an elderly man looking for people who wanted to go to work. Wiping the grease from my face and grabbing my belongings, I ran to that vehicle. Seemed only one other person was interested. Didn't seem peculiar at the time. No one was really interested. Homeless people without any money. And I didn't care about anything but the question of work. Well, after I got in the truck, we headed for Marina, where there was a boat being loaded with tools and supplies to transport us out to an island, a key. Yeah. As we waited to leave, I was told that we were to be working on a home on Ballast Key, 10 nautical miles west of Key West. Smiling and filled with a renewed sense of hope for change, I was able to finally enjoy the moments as we cruised out to Ballast Key. On the way out, we were told by the people on the boat we were to work for that The job entailed storm damage to the home used by the servants and guests, one of two that were built on the island. The project was at the drywall repair stage since the work had already been done to the exterior. The first night there, I slept under the stars in a hammock on the beach. It was beautiful to have the sounds of the surf and the warm air blowing, the starlit sky, her company. For some reason, I woke from a dream at about 2:30 in the morning. My eyes focused in on the stars, and I looked for meteors and shooters. That was when I saw the red streak shoot across the sky at a great distance. It went from south to north. As I attempted to understand what I had just seen, in the next instant, a blue streak shot across the sky from east to west, traveling from as far away as I could see to the farthest it could be seen traveling. This was perpendicular to the path of the red one. It was a very strange and confusing sight. Later, I would inquire many places about it, but received no comments of any sort. Why the coloration? Why did they intersect? Why did it seem like one was responding to the other? Was one both a meteor or comet? What was it that I saw? I want to know. We were going to be staying for several days, I found out, possibly a week or more. On the third day, things got ugly. Oh my goodness. The guys I came to work with turned into pirates, attacking me for my cigarette tobacco, taking my food stores, kicking me out of what they had going on, and beating me up in the process. Now without food, I used the moonlight, lighting the waters up in the shallows, making it easy to find lobsters among the rocks for my supper. Seemed like a great idea to relocate my bedding area, moving to a new location to sleep at that night. It had to be somewhere they would not find me for the fear that I would disappear permanently. That night, while the property owner slept in his home, they had looted the property, throwing their rifles into the ocean surf that they found in the home. They raided food stores that were hidden, as well as vandalized the entire home, starting by slinging cooking oil all over the walls that we had just repaired, demonized by the liquor and the crack cocaine they were smoking. The next day, I asked them what happened, thinking that refugees had come ashore. They said it was a power play, quote unquote. Well, that was a curious thing to say, and I'm not sure what they meant, but it seems that they were trying to extort money from the owner, David Wolkowski, a true name. That's when the guy I joined with them, decided it would be best if we stuck together. Well, at that point, it didn't matter by then because we were just loaded onto the boat and taken back to Key West within the next several hours. It was a silent and uncomfortable ride with evil, but for the sounds of the boat cruising on the ocean surface. When we arrived back at the marina, they asked me to join up with them, going up the keys to another work location in Marathon, I believe. As I took down the phone number, I thought, yeah, right, while gathering my things. In another 10 seconds, I hit the bricks running. They probably had plans for me due to the fact that I'd witnessed what they had done. I was certain of. Absolutely. Back on Coquina Rock, I searched for a place to hide like an animal. Finding a marina on the north side of the island, I met some street people who also resided in the area. They told me that if I take $5 to Dante's Inferno, I can hang out there by the pool all day long without any hassles from the Key West Police Department. They explained that I would be a paying customer, giving me the right to be there, which turned out to be true, but that only lasts for as long as you can come up with the daily $5. Got to have that thin. After the money that I had was gone, I began hiding my clothing I'd acquired from the thrift shop underneath a low-hanging palm tree so I wouldn't be seen carrying a bag. It was one of my only defenses to blend in. A backpack got you targeted. As for the thrift shop, even if you have no money, you can still get what you need to have. Listen very carefully to what I offer you here. The Salvation Army will gladly outfit you with whatever your needs are, taking down your Social Security number to submit for the accounting. If you ever need help, do not hesitate to go to the thrift shop for help. No matter what thrift shop it is, no matter what help you may need, they will get you on the right track. And the best thing for you to do, if you ever find yourself down and out, is to stay away from anyone else on the street except for that one person in the crowd that you can grow to confide in. Kathleen Bruction, it's so nice to see you. Yes. Now, I lost my place. Yeah, here we are. Usually it's the old man in the wheelchair that will be the most instrumental in recovering. Everyone else will keep you down and out, and don't you forget it. This could be proved to be life-saving information if you ever find yourself on the street. I don't care how old you are. The most potentially dangerous situations will be found while searching for change, dope, or booze. Keep to yourself and go without anything you think you need. All you need is air to breathe, warmth, and a place to sleep. Anything else could get you killed instantly or slowly, but certain and definite. Very quickly, I became acquainted with an old man in an electric wheelchair who was a musician. He had a place that he stayed at behind a building that was condemned. There was an awning on the back side of it that helped keep it concealed very well, along with some trees and bushes and the fencing from the surrounding backyards. The awning kept the weather off of us pretty good, and it had a safe feeling about it. He said that it was the safest hideaway on the streets, adding that he used this particular spot for several years. The first night I slept there with him, I had a dream about this humanoid demon. His chest had a cage door, and behind it were my children. Their screams for me to release them were ear-piercing. The head of this creature was extremely large and made of what seemed like paper mache. The head grew in size as I fought with this monster, hacking at the head with a knife. I tore a large hole in it from the right temple to the chin on the opposite side as it laughed, and it said that I could not destroy him and that he was 148 years old. Terrorized by this nightmare and vision, I awoke, only to lay there the rest of the night wishing I could sleep again without the visions. During the days, I'd hike the local harbor, where I would check in with boat captains for work. There was a public head with a shower facility for the people who lived in the harbor on the various types of boats. If I stayed by it, I could manage to get inside before the door closed all the way, since being a person running a slip or mooring boat is the only way to get a key to use it. One day I had managed to acquire some money, and I went to the tiki bar and sit and get a drink while watching them feed tarpon from the docks with chicken scraps. The tarpon were huge, 10, 12 feet long. Marveling at the sight of these tarpon, I sipped my drink. That's when I noticed a woman with a baby carriage walking along the dock in front of the tiki bar. She had a sun hat and large sunglasses on, the air blowing her sundress around at her knees. It was Yoa, Sean's new girlfriend, and an Icelander. Yoa was the woman Sean had been seeing when he was thrown out of the apartment. She was from Iceland, here on a visa to work as an actress. She'd become pregnant, which concerned Sean. He would often ask me about the situation, but I just told him that it could be the best thing to ever happen to him if he let it be. Yoa, of course, wanted to marry, becoming a U.S. resident, but he shared his fear with me that she may have been using him. They had a baby just months before this, and they were living together somewhere on the island. And routinely, I'd been checking in with them at the Island Dogs bar when I was not in jail, only hoping for some news I could use. Speaking her name got her to look my way. She was quick to join me at the table where we talked for quite a while. It wasn't easy to explain to her that I needed a friend and some guidance at finding a way home. It felt as though she might get the wrong answer or the wrong impression, so I was careful in explaining my situation and the circumstances surrounding it. There happened to be a place that was having a grand opening that night. Yoel mentioned that it was a new bar, restaurant that was having an open mic and outdoor dinner and drink special. $15 got you a plate of food and all the beer you could drink. They were going to be there that night. Happily, I agreed to meet them there with the hope of getting some help with my dire needs from Sean. Sean and Yoa showed up after I'd been there for a few minutes. We got a table and were served our food and the first round of drinks. Yoa snapped a photo of me that evening, and they brought me back to their pad where I stayed for about 2 weeks. During the time that they let me stay at their apartment, I managed to get a call back home calling Bob Smith, practically begging him to help me get home. It was a bit humiliating, but I got over it. He agreed to help me, purchasing a bus ticket on the next bus leaving Key West for Grand Rapids, Michigan. With the help of the last couple $100 Bob had to work with, I would be leaving Key West in the next few days. God, I was happy about that. Before I left, Sean got a job working as a home stereo salesman for a well-known department store, Sears. We would sit on his porch when he got home in the evening, smoking cigars and talking about things that were important in life to us. Yo didn't really like it that Sean would be gone all day and then come home and sit outside until they went to bed. There isn't a woman alive that would appreciate that, but I think he was afraid of the strange new environment, being a father. Feeling it was my job to put him at ease, I did what I could to reinforce him about the situation. He was doing the best he could at the time. Andy happened to drive through one day, stopping when he saw that Sean's car was home. Andy soon found out that I was there and quickly worked himself into a frenzy. It was hard keeping from getting into a brawl with him over all the wrong that I felt he'd done to me, but because I was at someone else's apartment, I kept from becoming moved to creating a disturbance in the community. Andy persisted at telling me that I had to leave Key West. His fear that I was in the area only reinforced my understanding of his malice towards me. It made me feel a sense of satisfaction that he and Julie were together as a couple, the way I figured that they deserved each other. When he finally left, Sean commended me for being a class act, quote unquote. All I really truly wanted to do was pummel Andy into a bloody quivering heap, load him into a fishing boat, and stuff him into a chum machine. That's exactly how I felt. It was with a sense of gratitude to Sean that I controlled myself, and I was just thankful that this didn't happen to me. Finally, I was leaving. Going home, chapter. May have been a Friday when I boarded the bus. So many emotions were running through me. Good morning, Melissa. Oh, I'm so happy to see you, Mal. I'm doing your live YouTube right now, too, reading the story. But I'm going to get back to you when I'm almost done, sweetie pie. Anyway, it may have been a Friday when I boarded the bus. So many emotions were running through me, happiness, relief, and nervousness, especially since it was March, cold up in the States. All I had to wear was a pair of sweatpants and some other scraps of northern clothing, and I managed to find at the thrift store. Settling into my seat, I wondered if the drama was over. It made sense to start seeking out through the people around me for a traveling partner, someone to bond with on some level. Feeling I needed someone to be a second pair of eyes to sense danger before it happens, I did a quick profile of the people around me, examining the clothing that they were wearing, their shoes, and anything that would tell me something about them. Picking out a person, I introduced myself, and we exchanged short versions of what we had been doing in Florida and where we were off to now. Well, this person was going to Indiana. Well, perfect, I thought. Since I'm going to Michigan, we'll be traveling the distance together, at least as far as Indiana, and he and I had much in common, making me feel at ease about the trip for the most part. Then it was pretty wild seeing the sights along the way, and there were things like wild hogs along the highway and various stretches of some of the most beautiful mountains I'd seen. Georgia was pretty scary when I got off to transfer, I must admit. There were cops, DEA agents, and what seemed to be drug pushers. It seemed like seemed likely they were narcotics agents who were posing as pushers, looking for traffickers coming through with quantities on the bus. Makes sense. Kentucky was pretty cool also, with a famous Kentucky Derby horse race track. When my traveling partner got off in Indianapolis, there was some downtime before the next departure. He invited me to a sports bar for a drink. At this point, it was easy in my big adventure to decide that it wasn't a good idea. All I wanted to do was get home. Enough had happened to me already, and I was so close, it didn't make sense to chance one more mishap. Amid the baggage and chaotic clusters of citizens, I stayed at the station waiting patiently. Chicago. Oh, my goodness. Chicago. When I got off at Chicago, I wanted a drink. Oh, 55 days sober, by the way, thank you. Oh, of all the places to be alone, this was not the one to go exploring in, but I decided to anyway. There wasn't a place in sight that looked like a store or a bar, so I began walking to find one at a very high pace. It was a bad time to explore since I was under a time constraint. Feeling like I could manage, I set off to find a place to buy a drink. After asking around, I found a place, buying myself a 22-ounce bottle of beer. Walking back, I was asked for a cigarette. This person also asked me for a sip off my drink. While handing him the bottle, while thinking I couldn't drink the whole thing without being busted anyway, he slammed down over half of it, asking me if I was from the country or something. It must have been, that only a fool would give out any handouts in Chicago. It's a good thing I was there, Melissa. Son of a bitch. Boarding a bus bound for Grand Rapids, I felt a sense of closure on the detachment with my home. By the time I finally got off the bus in Grand Rapids, it had been almost a full 24 hours, and I hadn't much more than 4 hours of sleep. Bob picked me up at the station and drove us back to the house he had most recently built, anxious to hear the whole story and put me to work completing the odds and ends that needed to be done before he and his family could legally take occupancy. I would be staying there for a period of time unknown. Within the next 4 days, I had done many of the major tasks that only I could have done with an acceptable level of quality. Oh, Zack, quit bragging. I was thankful to be back performing my trade, and it showed. He took me to the shop that he'd been spending much of his time at to give me a shot at working there. It was more like dragging in fresh meat to abuse, Melissa, if you know what I mean. The company manufactured and sold high-end cabinetry. By the end of the day, I'd proven myself and was offered a job for very little pay for my skills, but I was very pleased to have something to build on, and I accepted. When I attempted to ask for a better wage, I was told that I would be having a very hard time finding anything better. There was little I could do to argue since I felt an indebtedness to Bob for assisting me with my flee from Key West, and out of my gratitude for that help, I stayed. Because I'm gracious. It didn't make sense to complain any further. Didn't matter much either, but because I couldn't just accept the pay without trying to get a better deal negotiated. I mean, you got to try. You can't lose for asking. Everything was great at the job, especially since it was right on the stream that the salmon ran up to spawn. About a week into it, we were on our way back to the rat factory, as Bob called it, when we noticed a brand new Dodge Charger that the Michigan State Police were driving on the expressway. It had passed us. My surprise at seeing the state police using these Dodge Chargers caused me to make a comment to Bob about it, so he sped up a bit to get a better look at it. Oh, the car was sweet. And then this sweet-looking Michigan State Police cruiser, it slowed right down, baby. Yeah, and got behind us. His bubbles went up a minute later while Bob was asking me if I had anything on me. The cop came to the window and told Bob that he was in violation with his window tinting and that he had a tail light out. That's when the officer asked for my ID. The officer went back to his car and ran our information, came back, handed Bob his license, telling us that he had to take me in on a child support warrant. Great. Here I was again, lucky enough to get back home in time to get a job somewhere. Now I was probably going to lose it because I was going to jail for child support. Again. There's a whole reason I went to Key West was to get my money for child support. My court day rolled around the next day or so where I told them that I had gone to Florida to work but failed, explaining how I was waiting for my disability insurance to go through. The judge said that when I got it, I should bring it to them, framed as the prize it would be. After proclaiming to them that I would, she handed down a sentence of 90 days. Bob had been in contact with the court to verify that I did, in fact, have a job, earning me the work release program. They moved me into the old animal control complex, once a residential mental hospital. How fitting. Yeah, within a day or so, I resumed working and saving my money up. On the weekdays, I worked at the rat factory, and on the weekends, Bob sprang me out to work on his house in the cornfield. It worked out very well for me because all I had to do was sleep in the work release program and bring them my rent, saving the rest of my money for something useful. That something ended up being a brand new laptop computer that I intended to use in order to fulfill my promise to publish the music that Danny had and I had created. Now the problem I had was in the factory setting. Adam and Bob taunted each other with their seemingly friendly badgering of one another. It was part of the fun they had at work. Keeping as busy as I could while refraining from being part of it was nothing new to me at all. Trying to ignore them, I couldn't help but understand that Bob was finally getting a taste of his own medicine. Yeah, at some point in their head games, Adam must have said something along the lines of replacing Bob with me. Well, Bob began trying me at my abilities to decipher how to use and understand machinery in the shop. He normally took it upon himself to belittle me by giving me extensive instructions, as if I was lacking experience with woodworking machinery. This also gave him an excuse to be doing very little. Bob had tried to make me look incompetent by sending me to change shaper bits, set the machine's equipment up to do the machining, and run the cabinetry parts on this particular piece of machinery. Machinery that I had never, ever seen before. It really displeased him that he didn't have an example of incompetence to give Adam. Bob was becoming more nervous about me replacing him and doing what was within his power to make things worse for me. Because Bob was my ride, I absorbed the impact on the ride home with the head games that would accumulate, having a very destructive effect on my psyche. My stress level was going through the roof, triggering my paranoia, which caused for a lot of disturbance for me. Things compounded until I began making a lot of mistakes on the job. My first instinct was that someone had moved my parts that were stacked in a certain way in order to be cut or shaped properly, and maybe they had been. On another occasion, I was working materials through a machine-fed overhead belt sander that always accumulated a large pile of sawdust beneath it, despite the dust collection system. Deciding I had to sneak a cigarette, thinking that my nerves had calmed down, I used the vacuum of the system to evacuate cigarette smoke from the area. Since I was at the other end of the shop, they wouldn't be able to see me smoking, and since they frowned on my taking a cigarette break, I would be able to conceal it with the help of the vacuum. Well, I'd set the cigarette down when the cherry fell off the pile of sawdust because I was hand rolling, and the fucking cherry always falls off when you hand roll cigarettes. Anyway, yeah, set the cherry down. Well, smoke started to come from underneath the unit, filling the area with smoke. They thought I'd burned the belt, but it was a sawdust pile smoldering. I panicked, trying to find the fire before they came over. It was now a glowing spot of amber about 8 inches around. Luckily, I'd managed to take care of it before it could be a serious problem, but part of me thought it'd be really something they deserved for the dangerous games they were playing with my head. It's adult abuse. It was well known by all involved that I'd been coping with psychological issues as a result of my automobile accident. Well, fortunately, my Social Security claim was finally granted to me, a full award of benefits. Very short time after that, I quit, moved in with my sister, Amanda. The house was the one in Conklin where I'd been helping my mother before the Julie fiasco. I didn't feel safe in Bob's company any longer, and having my disability award gave me the independence needed to get away from him once again. Although we had our many differences, I would continue to think of him and his wife. And although he may never know or accept it, I understand why he has issues enough to see past his ego and care for him as a friend, though scarred as we both are. I really hope people are listening to my story. Please buy a copy of my book, Escaping Despondency. It's available on Amazon Kindle. Help support an artist who spent over 26 years in the streets, homeless, paying off $50,000 in child support. Yeah, because I'm a real man. Well, now that I had a job and a goal, I decided to try one last time to find someone special to share my time with. Having heard the many commercials for eHarmony for a few years, along with many other dating sites, even though I scoffed at them, I decided to start looking into that idea. eHarmony's site was the most logical to me. I mean, if you're going to try it, you need to be logical, right? Well, things began with the trying the offers to check out the places for free. And then I figured, that the $80 or $90 it would cost was a glass ceiling in my eyes, a way of grading the prospects. I mean, if a person wasn't concerned with the fee, they were probably worth my time, even if it wasn't what they were generally looking for in life. But then again, I was looking for a particular person myself, so it was all fair play. Well, never breathing a word to anyone about my plans, I set up a free account to browse with. Using the photo that Yoa had taken of me in Key West, I filled out my profile information. I went through all the protocol for getting my matches from the database, and I started surfing for potential women to interact with. When I knew I was onto something that looked meaningful, I bought a money order, mailed it to them, and I waited for the notification that I was able to start the process. That's when I met Jenny. Jennifer was not the first girl I tried to start interaction with. There were several women that I had screened, all rejecting me for something I'd written in my profile. The question of what that was got me to wonder if I'd said something, so I inspected it deciding that I'd said nothing wrong at all. Something I said might have sounded strange, but then to them, but I was going to go, I wasn't going to go in and change it to improve my chances. I mean, if they didn't like what I said in my profile, then it was only because they weren't worth my time. It was only a matter of time before I would meet the person who could appreciate what was there and move on with, which was exactly what happened. Jennifer had posted a photo that was taken by Sienna, her 4-year-old little girl. It wasn't a flattering photo, but I instantly knew when I saw it that she had used it for a reason. The photo, for the sake of what she looked like, was unimportant. It was what the photo said to me that was important, and it spoke volumes. We started out by picking the questions that were pre-written, the ones that help you get to know something more by providing a buffer from the rejection a person might feel if it goes wrong somehow. We read each other's answers, continuing the process until she decided that she was interested in taking it to the next level, which was a direct chat communication over the computer. Our cerebral connection grew until we decided that it was time to meet and see if there was more, even though her friends told her that I was probably bald because of the hat I was wearing in my photo. That was in September 2008. My mother insisted on driving me to Jenny's apartment instead of me taking a bus so she could lay eyes on her, determining if she was a good idea for me to be dabbling with, which is ironic because my mother doesn't give two shits about me. Knowing my history with all the wrong women, it was possibly the most loving thing my mother could have offered me in our relation at that time. By November, we knew we were compatible. She liked how I got along with her 2 children, and I liked being with them. By Christmas, we were comparing notes to be certain that we had something that was real. Before the winter had begun, we knew that we wanted to end our search, and before winter was over, we knew that we had finally found what we both searched for and wanted to keep. This new birth between Jenny and I led me to move to Lansing with her. There were a few inconveniences with reestablishing my medical care, but I didn't care. Certainly, I'm not about to say that life has been a bed of roses. Anyone who thinks it is clearly hasn't actually had to do anything for themselves and will find that they are helpless when they're forced to have to carve an existence out of the earth on their own. Roses need tending to and only become as beautiful as you care for them to be. Ours are growing just wonderfully where we are in Boyne Falls, Michigan, and she and I have never been happier in life, despite the wolves that always seem to be at our door. Without those wolves, we wouldn't be able to fully love and appreciate each other as much as we do, and can only hope for the rest of the world to one day have for their own. Oh, my hair just stood up. Not having found what you do not want in life, how will you know what you do want? Joy, love, and pain go together. Life is good when you let love win. Don't go through life without feeling it. And that's the end of my excerpt, Out of the Ashes. My book, Escaping the Despondent Sea. Thank you so much, Melissa. I see and feel your love. Thank you, Melissa. I'm so happy to see you, Mel. I've been worried about you. Thought about riding my bike down and bang on your door and raise some help. Anyway, I'm at Zack, signing off. All YouTube out there. I hope you enjoyed my excerpt. Please pick up a copy of my book on Amazon Kindle. I hope my Twitter people are out there. Gordon Tradgold, love you, man. You're helping put me on the map. Please continue to do so. I'm going to help you too. Peace, love, and care. And if you come see me change your underwear, baby, your life is important. That's why education is important. Elevate yourself in society and become someone that the rest of the community should be looking up to. Do not emulate what you're being seen on TV. We're shown on TV. Don't be like Mike. Be like you. I'm here for you. Come and see me. You will find something special. You bet your sweet ass. I hope you liked that.